Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. COVID-19 deaths in Brazil are spiking again with nearly 700 dead overnight, crossing the toll to over 170,000. Pakistan is also witnessing a significant upsurge as daily deaths climb to 75 with over 2,800 cases. India has registered 501 fatalities overnight as the death toll crosses 138,000 with infections topping 9.5 million. Global death toll by the new coronavirus has exceeded 1.4 million with over 63.7 million infections. U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign has filed a petition challenging Wisconsin's presidential vote results. Meanwhile, Attorney General William Barr has discredited Trump's claims of mass electoral fraud in the election. Barr says the Justice Department has found no evidence of fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. The US and Turkey take aim at each other during a virtual meeting of NATO foreign ministers. The outgoing US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused Turkey of aggravating tensions in the Mediterranean. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu fired back at Pompeo, accusing him of urging European allies to forge an alliance against Turkey. The UN says food has run out for the nearly 100,000 Eritrean refugees who have been sheltering in camps in Ethiopia's restive Tigray region. Meanwhile, the Ethiopian government says a senior politician linked to the rebellion has surrendered. Wednesday marks a month since the Ethiopian Prime Minister announced a military operation against Tigray rebels. And in football, Liverpool have qualified for the knockout stage of the Champions League after beating Ajax 1-0 at home. Curtis Jones scored his first goal of the league at Anfield to give a crucial victory to his team in the Group D clash. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now the news in detail. The global number of COVID-19 infections is nearing 64 million, while the death toll has crossed 1.4 million. Amid news of death and devastation, the world is gearing up to administer coronavirus vaccines. More in the following report.
With critical breakthroughs in COVID-19 vaccine developments, countries have started preparing for immunization drives. Brazil has decided to vaccinate its indigenous people and health workers first, as the country recorded 697 fatalities overnight. The nationwide death toll has crossed 173,000, while in the United States, an advisory panel of the Centers for Disease Control has recommended that nursing homes and health workers be immunized first. Hospitals across the country have started making necessary arrangements for vaccine deployment.
So we are very fortunate at the Jackson Health System. We are expecting the COVID-19 vaccine. We have the negative 80 refrigeration freezer needed to store the vaccine. We are expecting the vaccine in mid-December. So we are ready to make sure that we are deploying the vaccine to our employees.
Meanwhile, the European Union has also given a clear time frame to its members for the start of their vaccination programs. British regulators are considering both AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines for emergency approval. Germany is preparing vaccination centers across the country for the launch of its immunization drive in the first quarter of 2021. And in Asia, India's coronavirus death toll has surged to over 138,000, with more than 9.4 million cases. November proved to be the deadliest month for the Indian capital, New Delhi, with over 100 daily fatalities. But New Delhi says not everyone will need to be vaccinated.
Our purpose is to break the chain of virus transmission. So if we are able to vaccinate a critical mass of people and break that virus transmission, then we may not have to vaccinate the entire population.
Japan has approved a bill to provide vaccination free of charge, with its majority elderly population extremely vulnerable to the virus.
Pakistan has recorded 75 more deaths from COVID-19, pushing the toll to 8,166. This is the country's highest daily death since July. The health ministry says 2,829 infections were reported overnight. Health officials say there are more than 49,000 active coronavirus cases. The country has recorded 403,000 infections so far, out of which more than 345,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Imran Khan has called for national collective efforts to fight the second wave. Presiding over a meeting of the federal cabinet, the Prime Minister asked for timely purchase and of a coronavirus vaccine. The cabinet has approved a $150 million grant to procure vaccines, with healthcare workers and the elderly a priority. The UN says $35 billion will be needed in 2021 to overcome the losses due to the coronavirus pandemic. At a news conference, UN official Mark Lowcock said over 200 million people worldwide will need some form of assistance. He said the situation is the bleakest and holds the darkest perspective on humanitarian need in future. Lowcock said the money requested will be enough to help 160 million of the most vulnerable people across 56 countries. The UN official said extreme poverty is set to rise and life expectancy will fall for the first time since the 1990s. U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign has filed a petition challenging Wisconsin's presidential vote results. The swing state certifies President-elect Joe Biden as a winner after a recount in 2 counties. The petition was filed as Attorney General William Barr discredited Trump's claim of mass electoral fraud in the election. Barr says the Justice Department has found no evidence of fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. The Trump campaign has said the Justice Department did not conduct a thorough enough investigation. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden marches towards presidential transition, forging his administration. Unveiling his team of economic advisors, Biden named former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen as the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Saudi Arabia has criticized Iran for implicating Riyadh in the killing of top Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs said Iran is desperate to blame Riyadh for anything negative happens in Tehran. In a tweet, Adil Al-Jubair said engaging in assassinations is not the policy of Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's representative to UN condemned the killing of Fakhrizadeh as a loss of the entire Muslim world. He urged Iran not to escalate the situation as emotional and spontaneous reactions will not bring positive outcomes. The UN says a two-state solution is the only premise for a just, lasting and comprehensive peace between Israelis and Palestinians. UN General Assembly President Volkan Bozkır was addressing the Legislative Committee on the Rights of Palestinians. He criticized Israel's attempts to erode the status of Jerusalem, threats of annexation, and the inhuman blockade in Gaza. He said these recurring activities severely curtail the fundamental rights and freedoms of the Palestinians. Bozkır asserted that the rights of Palestinians are not up for negotiations. He said only constructive negotiations between the parties and adherence to UN resolutions will bring about a durable solution. In Ethiopia, the United Nations says food has run out for nearly 100,000 refugees sheltering in camps in the conflict-hit TIGRAY region. The UN has appealed for urgent access to Eritrean refugees in the area. Last week, the government said it will open a humanitarian corridor to assist civilians caught in the fighting. Wednesday marks a month since the Ethiopian Prime Minister announced a military operation against Tigray rebels. Meanwhile, the Ethiopian government says a senior politician linked to the rebellion has surrendered. The fourth round of the UN-brokered political dialogue has started in Libya. Representatives of the Government of National Accord and Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army are attending. Held by the UN Support Mission in Libya, the session is taking place via closed-circuit television. It will discuss around 8 proposals, including the selection of Prime Minister and Presidential Council of Libya. The UN has selected a total of 75 people from different regions of Libya to attend the forum. The first meeting of the forum agreed to hold general elections on 24th of December 2021. The US and Turkey take aim at each other during a virtual meeting of NATO foreign ministers. The outgoing US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused Turkey of aggravating tensions in the Mediterranean. Pompeo said Ankara gave a gift to the Kremlin by purchasing Russian anti-aircraft missile system. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu fired back at Pompeo, accusing him of urging a European allies to forge an alliance against Turkey. Ankara's top diplomat said Washington was blindly siding with Athens, escalating regional tensions. Cavusoglu also accused the US of backing Kurdish terrorist organizations in Syria. The meeting was primarily intended to focus on a new report on how NATO should adapt for the next decade. A new high-level report has urged NATO to broaden its scope to deal with rising global changes. The 67-page document commissioned by the bloc said it must play a larger part in the international order. It called on NATO to address the challenges posed by an aggressive Russia and the rise of China. It also cited the need for NATO to help against militant attacks and prepare for technological changes. The report cautioned against political divergences within the bloc, terming them dangerous. Other recommendations include a body to coordinate Western policy towards China. The report will be presented to NATO leaders at a planned summit next year. Russia has deployed its new S-300 air defense system on the disputed Kuril Islands near Japan. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said the system can counter ballistic and aerial attacks. It said short-range anti-aircraft missile systems were already on duty on the island of ETHIOPIA in Sakhalin region. The Russians seized the islands at the end of World War II. A territorial row has prevented Japan and Russia from signing a formal peace treaty. Tokyo is highly sensitive to military moves by Russia on the strategic importance of the chain of islands. In Argentina, investigators raided the home of Diego Maradona psychiatrist under a judicial order. They also searched Agustina Kosakov's private office in Buenos Aires. In an interview, Kosakov's lawyer said the prosecutors were investigating a possible malpractice. Vadim Mischanchuk said these were routine measures when investigating a patient's death.
She gave her statement as a witness, and this raid forced me to turn up in order to talk to the prosecutor, and I found out she is being investigated. So we could say that if she is being investigated, that means she could be charged.
In India, talks between the centre and farmers demanding a revision of controversial farm laws ended inconclusively. The protesters and government agreed to meet again on Thursday. Mass protests continue as the deadlock on the ground persists. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government passed laws ending its mandatory procurement of produce at fixed rates. The farmers say the 3 laws are a death decree for farmers as they will be exploited by big corporations. Farmers have rejected the expert committee set up by a Modi government, saying such panels have never led to any outcome. In India, 8 people have been killed in a road accident in the northern Uttar Pradesh state. Police said 2 people sustained injuries and are undergoing treatment at a local hospital. The accident in the Kaushambi district occurred after a sand-laden truck overturned and fell on SUV. 10 occupants of the car were returning from a wedding. Police say security and rescue officials have arrived at the scene and are taking appropriate action. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and moving on to the toll from an accident in the western German city of Trier has risen to 5. 15 people were injured when a speeding car plowed into a pedestrian area. A 9-month-old baby was among those dead. Witnesses said people screamed in panic and some were thrown into the air by the car as it crashed through the shopping zone. Police said they have arrested a 51-year-old German suspect and is now being questioned. A prosecutor says the suspect had drunk a significant amount of alcohol, ruling out the incident as a terrorist act. A giant robot from an iconic Japanese anime was unveiled at a theme park site in Yokohama. The life-sized 18-meter-tall Gundam was built in the Bay Area to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the anime. Official video provided by the park's operator showed the Gundam being activated and moving its legs and arms. It will be the centerpiece of the Gundam Factory Yokohama, a tourist attraction that opens on December 19. The park will welcome visitors for a limited time until March 2022. Japanese officials hope the anime robot will stimulate tourist demand after coronavirus brought the industry to a halt. A rare skeleton of saber-toothed cat is expected to fetch between 60,000 and 80,000 Swiss francs at an auction next week. The skeleton is estimated to be some 37 million years old. More in the following report.
In Switzerland, centuries-old skeleton of a prehistoric predatory mammal is all set to be sold at an auction house Piguet. The fossilized skeleton discovered in the rocky badlands of South Dakota belongs to a robust animal which hunted horses and small rhinoceros.
Il y a vraiment un grand intérêt du public.
There is really huge interest from public in general for everything related to dinosaurs and prehistory. And I think it's because of the numerous films and video games that came out in recent years.
The primitive skeleton mounted on a piece of wood is prepared to be the star lot among 40 others at the auction on December 8. According to the head of Swiss-based seller, the specimen was better than others which have come in recent years.
C'est la nouveauté, c'est quelque chose qui n'existe pas depuis très longtemps, ça s'est développé.
It's new. It's something we haven't seen for a long time. It has developed over the last 5 years, maybe a little bit more. Big collectors start to drive up prices of exceptional pieces such as this kind of animal. It is universal dimension, no religion, no culture. It speaks to all of us wherever we come from. It's from before our time, and I think it's one of the rare artistic sectors which really has no borders.
The auction dedicated to paleontology is hoping to attract online bidders.
In Puerto Rico, a massive telescope at Arecibo Observatory that had been deteriorating since August has collapsed. The telescope aided 57 years of astronomical discoveries. The U.S. National Science Foundation says the radio telescope's 900-ton instrument platform fell yesterday. It added no injuries were reported. 2 cables supporting the reflector dish had broken since August, causing damage and forcing officials to close the observatory. The telescope was one of the largest in the world. It was used to study distant planets, potentially hazardous asteroids, and potential signatures of extraterrestrial life. China has successfully landed a spacecraft on the moon's surface in a historic mission to retrieve lunar samples. State media says the unmanned mission aims to learn more about the moon's origins. The mission will attempt to collect samples from a previously unvisited area in a massive lava plain known as the Ocean of Storms. If successful, the mission will make China the third nation to have retrieved lunar samples after the US and the Soviet Union. State media said the samples will be transferred to a return capsule for the trip back to Earth. Last year, the Chang'e 4 probe touched down on the far side of the moon, the first space probe from any nation to do so. And now moving on to the business stories, stocks in the Asia Pacific are trading mixed as investors react to the suspension of Xiaomi shares. Mainland Chinese stocks slipped under the flat line while the Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong also dipped marginally. South Korea's Kospi, however, jumped nearly 1.5%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and Topix Index also edged up. Australian bourses moved into positive territory as well, with the ASX 200 rising fractionally. Liverpool have qualified for the knockout stage of the Champions League after beating Ajax 1-0 at home. Tuesday's encounters in the Champions League were crucial in deciding the final round of 16. More in the following report. As the knockout stage approaches, the UEFA Champions League is heating up. Curtis Jones scored his first Champions League goal at Anfield to give a crucial victory to the Reds in the Group D clash. In another group match, Midtjylland drew 1-1 with Atlanta for their first point in the tournament this season. In Group B, Shakhtar Donetsk shocked Real Madrid 2-0. In the other Group B clash, Inter Milan beat Mönchengladbach 3-2 in a thoroughly entertaining encounter. Atletico Madrid could only draw 1-1 against Bayern at home, following a late penalty from Thomas Müller. FC Porto and Manchester City advanced to the next phase after the two played out a goalless draw in Group C. One member of the Pakistan cricket team has tested positive for COVID-19, taking the overall tally of infections to 8. 6 of the 53-member squad had tested positive upon their arrival in New Zealand, while another case detected last week. New Zealand's health ministry says the team is not allowed to train. It will remain on hold pending consideration by health officials. The Pakistan Cricket Board says all those who return negative tests are expected to be able to train in managed isolation. The first 2020 is slated for the 18th of December at Auckland, while the last test will be played at Christchurch on 3rd of January. South Africa paceman Kagiso Rabada has been ruled out of the one-day series against England after sustaining a right adductor strain. He is expected to treat 3 weeks to recover. The pacer has been released from the squad and the biosecure environment in place for the England tour. Cricket South Africa said his release will ensure his rehabilitation ahead of the Test series against Sri Lanka. South Africa played 3 one-day international against England starting this weekend. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.